All right, folks. Today we're going to talk about opportunities. And I've said, and so here's the thing is I was told this a long time ago. So before I was able to really work on my own personal development, when I was really starting to think about, okay, I wanted to change the trajectory of my life. I was back then, I was working in a W-2 job. It's not the job was good or bad. I just knew that I wasn't in control of my life. And I wanted to start figuring out a way to get control. And part of that is obviously financially, right? You want to start figuring out ways to generate income for yourself versus just reporting to a job every day, every week. And so if that's something that you're interested in, that's what the discussion we want to have here today is. So opportunities are everywhere. And I heard this way back in the day, 10, 12, 15 years ago. And it's like, it would almost like eat at me thinking, well, where are they? If they're everywhere, where are they? And so it took me a lot of reflection, a lot of thoughts, a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error, a lot of mastermind meetings, having friends like Greg to talk things over with, to really understand where those things are. And those opportunities are in your imagination. So they're your ideas. It's what the value that is created in the marketplace is from someone's idea. And we all have an imagination. We all have the ability to use that imagination as a tool to create value in the marketplace. And so that's the discussion I want to have here today. Thoughts on that, Greg?
Yeah, like you said, opportunities are everywhere. You just have to really recognize them and find which ones that, kind of align with what you want to do, what value you want to deliver, what skill sets you have, or what skill sets you have resources to. So it doesn't mean you have to do every aspect of every job in every business. You should really, like I know Henry Ford, he wasn't on the line making cars, but he knew systems and processes.
And he had the idea, right, of those systems and processes, right? The assembly line. He's the one that's been given the credit for that creation. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Obviously, we weren't there. And I haven't read a book on it yet or not. But I'm curious if he did that on his own or if he had like some help with that idea. But the point is, I just wanted to put on that, though, it was his idea that created this massive value, not only for his company, but for his employees and obviously the car industry, though, even the way it is today.
Yeah. And even talking about Henry Ford, I heard a story the other day where he was telling his engineers, and I might kind of mess up the details of the story, but the gist is he was telling his engineers, I want an 8-cylinder motor or engine or whatever it is, right? I'm not, Randy's a car guy. I'm not. But he was saying, you got to figure this out. Guys, figure this out, brainstorm, do what you got to do. And they came back and said, it's impossible. Can't be done the way you're asking us to do it. And Henry just said, keep on trying, keep on failing, keep on trying, keep on thinking, keep on coming up with ideas. And what happened? They finally came up with an idea, a way to put 8 cylinders under the hood. And it wasn't because Henry Ford was thinking about it. He didn't know much about engines, I don't think, but he knew how to drive his team, and he had that vision in his mind. Exactly what you said. There is an opportunity for an 8-cylinder car, 8-cylinder engine, and we want to be the first to bring that opportunity to the market. And that was just in his mind, and he literally didn't do it himself, but he built the people and the team around him to do it, and he accomplished it. And, just one of his major accomplishments was the 8-cylinder motor.
Love that. Yeah. So before that happening, the engineering, the processes weren't in place at that time. We think obviously back to the early 1900s to even cast a block is what it's called it's probably out of iron. Don't quote me on that 100%. But anyways, there wasn't a piece able to cast this block big enough to support, like you said, this 8-cylinder engine up to that moment or up till that point. And he would not let his idea die. He would not let it stop. He would not let someone keep coming back to him and saying, sir, it can't be done. Sir, we can't figure it out. It's not going to happen. No, you will go and continue to work. There is a way. I can see it. I can envision it. I use my imagination and I can have it come to me. It's kind of even almost like that same idea of Thomas Edison with the light bulb, is that he had the idea of incandescent light that we take for granted every single day, that if this man wouldn't have had that in his imagination, gone through it talks about, he went through thousands of failures to hundreds. The point is that he tried and tried and tried. It did not stop until he reached his ultimate goal, which was his idea of an incandescent light, a light that was not created off or thrown off by flame. And so that's where when I think about that, even for myself, when I started to think in those ways, so once again, it's a mindset shift. You start thinking about, okay, what can I be creative with? What are some of the things that when I was a child that I loved to do? So that's the thing for me with my grandson. I mean, he's 15 months old now. It's just fun to watch him starting to learn. So he's starting to learn and play, even almost be creative, even with the toys that he's got on the ground. He doesn't, he can have a block in one hand and a ball in another, and he's like beating them together, and he's trying to just figure things out. And that's kind of, if we could go back to that time frame in our life where our imagination was very active, was very willing to understand that, yeah, you're going to probably make some mistakes. And that's kind of what we said, even with these two stories here today. It's just trial and error. You just keep moving. You don't stop. When you use that imagination in a purposeful way, when you have an idea, and then you go to work and make it real. I refer back to Jim Rohn all the time, and that's one thing that he says within his programs a lot, is that you have an idea, and then you go to work and make it real, which that's where it can be challenging. It can be frustrating. It can be all of the negative things, but it can also be rewarding. It can be fun. The podcast is a great example. I had the idea for the podcast several years ago. And at one point, I finally had to get the courage to step into that idea and realize that all I had to do is use my imagination, which is exactly what I did. Came up with the idea, came up with the name, came up with the colors, came up with the style, came up with all of the things. We've talked about that in the past. But then I went to work and I made it real. Now, is it where I want it to be? No, not yet. It's come a long ways. In 2 years, by the time when this episode drops, we're going to be approaching 2 years of it being live. And well over 200 episodes, and I've brought on a new co-host, and it's been a lot of fun. Has it been challenging? Yes. Do I feel like doing it every day? No. But it's been fun. I've met a ton of people. I've interviews with folks all over the world. I've met some new friends. Anyways, I just wanted to make sure that I point out that the opportunities that are everywhere are in your own mind. They're in your imagination. They're in the dreams that you have. And I just want you to understand that you can do it. You just have to have some confidence, find some friends, find some people, whether it's Greg and I. We want to build you up. We want to try to help you get the confidence to go out there and build these things, because that's what you're going to be doing. Even though it's digital, I know the podcast, I'm speaking to a microphone, but it's all digital, right? The MP3s, the MP4s, the files, the uploads, the downloads, just all the stuff. It's all digital. We're not building blocks for an engine today. We're not building light bulbs. At least I'm not. You can. Maybe you've got an improvement that you want to make to the light bulb. I don't know. But the point is that it's your imagination, and it's going to be your idea that you're going to go to work and make it real, which is why it's super fun.
Yeah, so I think a couple things there. I know Edison with the light bulb, and I've heard this quote recently: if you're doing it perfectly, then you're doing it wrong.
Wow.
Which is like really...
Tell me more. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it was on a podcast about perfectionism, and how perfectionism is basically going to just keep you from, or it's going to keep you procrastinating on what you want to do, because you're never going to be perfect,
right,
in anything that you do, right? The way you deliver a message, the way it's set up on a platform, whatever it is. So it really hit home with me. It could be for diet, it could be for exercise. If you hold yourself accountable to 100% doing anything, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Yeah. So that was the point of that quote. And I was like, oh, I got to remember that quote, because it hit home really, really hard.
And I'm glad you did. I'm over here going, I want to continue talking. I'm trying not to interrupt you, because yes, that 100% resonates with me. Meaning I fought for the longest time, as I've shared in the past. I wasn't necessarily good in school, and the biggest problem is that it was either you were an A or an F. I mean, it's like you were graded. You were persuaded and told that you had to get this perfect score. The perfect score was the best score, right? There was no failing. There was no trying. There was no any of the things that when you're out here in the real world that it requires to build these businesses, to build these relationships, right? It's all trial and error. So yeah, to strive to be perfect is you're setting yourself up for a world of hurt. We've used that phrase in the world in the podcast in the past as well. But yeah, if perfection is your game, yeah, you probably need to, I don't know. This is entrepreneurship, building a business, trying to build these dream lifestyles. You need to work on your mindset first and realize that, yeah, there is no perfect out here. One thing, and I think this was Seth Godin. Are you familiar with Seth Godin? I believe that's his name. He's really big in marketing and that type of thing. One thing I learned, once again, way back when I was first getting started, he would say, just ship it. Just ship it. Meaning just get started. Even if it's not done, just ship it. So it's, once again, I'll just use the podcast as an example. I set a date that I wanted to launch it. This was in April, a couple years ago. And I just set the date and I went to work and I got it as far as I possibly could. But I didn't let the fear of, okay, I don't have this 100% done, or this isn't perfect, or I'm going to sound stupid, or I don't have all the right equipment. I didn't let those thoughts keep me from shipping it. So that's the whole point as well, is that you've got to just get it out there. Test. A lot of what we do is testing, figuring out what's working, what's not. That's one beauty about the internet these days, is you can get data relatively quickly. You'll find out whether or not something's resonating with folks relatively quickly, and then you can pivot from there. That's been one obviously great thing about the internet. But anyways, yeah, love that, man. Just get it out there. Don't fight or push back on the perfectionism, I guess maybe is how I would phrase it in my own mind. Love that.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And then the other thing you mentioned was, just talking about networking and talking with others. I mean, that's huge as far as, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because sometimes you can feel a little bit isolated as an entrepreneur because others around you may be W-2 workers and they can't really relate to, you not going to an office and you putting yourself out there when your product isn't 100% ready, like we just talked about. So finding that support from other entrepreneurs, whether that's online or in masterminds or listening to podcasts, but definitely surround yourself with others who have those same struggles. You can ask them questions to, how do you overcome that struggle? A lot of entrepreneurs, we want to help out other entrepreneurs even when we're not getting paid for it, because it's just our community, right? That's what we do.
Right. Yeah, that's how it is, right? We're trying to add value, give back as much as possible can, especially if you've seen a path that is going to be better, right? I don't want to say good or bad, because I don't think there is good or bad. It's better, maybe a better way versus the way you're doing it currently. Before we hit record today, you and I, so you're talking about the collaboration with folks, right? You and I were brainstorming an idea. There again, it's in our imagination. This was something that was in my imagination. You brought up an idea that you had potentially, and I was like, so I did a little bit more brainstorming even within my own mind, and then I presented that idea to you. And so then the back and forth, it's like, okay, I think that, yeah, maybe we could do this and maybe we should do that, right? And then we'll start putting it together using our own skills and abilities, and who knows where that will go. But that was nothing more than an idea. That was nothing more than taking your surroundings and realizing that, okay, here's an opportunity. I see this gap in the marketplace where I can solve this issue, and then I can use my imagination, use the skill sets that I've built, collaborate with others if needed, to build out this thing. I mean, we'll just call it a thing, but it's obviously a business of some kind, whether it's a digital business or a physical brick and mortar business. The idea, though, or the point that I just really want to pound home today is that it's in your mind. It's in your imagination. So even real estate, I know real estate is right up your alley, Greg. And you see or you hear about folks that will talk about a value add when it comes to like an apartment building. And what that means is that they will take an underperforming property that is torn up. I mean, it just hasn't been upgraded. Think maybe, many generations of carpet in the past or just paint, right? And what they're going to do, because they have the imagination and the vision in their own mind of what it could be. And so with that imagination, they can see something that one person might look at it and think, gosh, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And the other, you flip it to the person with an imagination and say, oh my gosh, this is the best opportunity I've ever seen. And it's the same building on the same corner, but it's two people with two different mindsets, one with an imagination of possibility and one with just stuck in looking at what the thing is. Because yes, it's ugly, but that's the opportunity. And if people can really grasp that, I think that's super important too.
Yeah, and then coming from like the real estate world, I know a lot of people who, they're flippers and they're renovating properties, and exactly they're looking at a property and saying, oh, wow, it's got a lot of damage over here. The roof is caving in. And they just see that as, like you said, a way to add value. And really just make that house, put it back to normal, or put it back to, what it's supposed to be. And to take it even further, I think two gentlemen, they renovate houses that were previously in a fire, because a lot of people, even flippers, some of them like, I don't want to touch a fire
Right.
house because who knows what's going on in there. And these guys, that's just their specialty, because they can see what it's going to look like once they're done with it, and nothing's going to stop them. Not even, the fire. And I'm sure there's a lot of paperwork you have to do that's extra because it's, a fire property, but exactly what you said, they can see what it looks like at the end, not just what it is right now, which is like a pile of rubble that is very, turns off a lot of people.
Yeah, love that. My dad used to flip houses back before the '08 meltdown crisis, right? So he was flipping homes. And one thing he said to me, and one thing I've heard others, so it's like, you've got these flipping channels or the HDTV, that type of stuff, right? So I've heard it in other places as well, but we would walk into this, he'd be out looking for a home, something he was going to purchase, and he would, the smell, it's, if you've ever seen or smelled, it's bad, like an odor that you can't even describe with words, how bad it is. And we would walk in, and his first words to me, when we would smell that smell, is that he would look at me and goes, "Do you know what that is?" And I would like, "No, what in the world?" So there again, I'm stuck in the smell itself, and he's got his imagination going, and he would look at me and goes, "No, that's money.
Opportunity.
That's opportunity." And he would just get a big old smile on his face. Now, as long as the structure was sound, I mean, he wasn't going to tear it down and start over. That's not what his game was. But if it was just a carpet and paint and obviously get the smell out, which is possible, he would say, yes, that's money. Whereas people will walk in there and walk right back out because they couldn't stomach the smell. Yeah. So that's where it's in your imagination. It's in your mindset. It's in the way you look at different things going on around you. So that would be my encouragement for you today, as you even shut this episode off, is brainstorm some different ideas. Look around for opportunities you might have in your own neighborhood. You might have houses up for sale that have overgrown weeds and the shingles are a mess. And it's a dirty, messy property. Look for the opportunity within that. Now, we're not going to get into the details of what you need to do and all the due diligence and all that stuff. That's for whether it's a different podcast, that's just not part of the discussion here today. But the point is I want you to start seeing those opportunities because they are everywhere. You hear people talking about even with cars. You can buy a car. My dad used to flip cars. He would buy a car in the summer that was rusted and just beat up, right? He would bring it home. And I know Bondo, if anybody's familiar with cars, Bondo's, right? So basically you just fix it with plastic and just putty. And anyways, he would fix it and paint it. Wasn't perfect, but he would make a few $100, $1,000. I don't remember exactly. He wasn't telling me how much he was making. But the point is that he would see that in his imagination. He would see this beat up old car, have the vision of what it could be, and then he went to work and made it real, which is where the opportunities are. They're right there within your own mind. So anyways, love this conversation because to me, it's just so much fun when you start to allow yourself to imagine. It's like the brainstorming session we had before we hit record today. That's so much fun. To allow yourself to think and dream. It's like, wow, what could this be? You'll find that you like doing certain parts of a business. So for me, I love doing the back end things. I love creating the imagery and making the sound right and the video and all of those things, the copywriting. I love doing those pieces. I would, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Greg, but I don't think you enjoy those as much.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So with that said, though, is that we can take our own skill sets, the things that you're good at, along with the things that I'm good at, and then in collaboration, what could we build together? And that's kind of been the whole idea about bringing Greg on here on the Rich Mind podcast. So that's when it becomes fun. And then the opportunities. And the last episode, we talked about, having the mindset of a middle-class mindset, working for somebody versus building these businesses. That's where it all starts from. It starts from these ideas. It starts from your imagination. And it's all possible. It takes time. You're going to fail. You're going to pivot. I like to use the word pivot. You're going to pivot. I've pivoted a lot. If I could say that, I've pivoted a lot. And I'm going to continue to pivot because I just can't stop. So anyways, any more thoughts? I think that, this has been a lot of fun. Any more thoughts on this with the imagination and opportunities?
Yeah, I was going to say bringing in the visualization part of mindset. We can use that for a lot of different things, health and wealth, but also with business. Like we were talking about here, once you're brainstorming, with yourself or with a business partner or a friend or anybody, then you can visualize what that is going to look like. What's the end product? Going back to the fire burned house is, what is that house going to look like once I'm done with it? Visualize it and then work backwards from there. So use that. Visualization is a great tool, especially when it comes to looking for opportunities and seeking out new ones.
Love that. Folks, we've talked about a lot of the topics in past episodes. I would encourage you to go back and try to find those as well. If I can think of any right off the top of my head when I'm editing this and putting this out for production, I will try to include those in the show notes. But the idea, though, is that it's slowing down that chatter in your own mind, getting conscious of what's going on in your day-to-day, getting in the driver's seat, being in control of your thoughts versus your thoughts being in control of you on your day-to-day, right? It's being able to see that opportunity. You probably have driven by several opportunities everywhere you go. And if you're not quite able, because of the chatter and all the things that are going on with your own mind, to sit and see those things and then visualize them, like what Greg was talking about, you're going to miss them. They're being missed all the time. I miss opportunities all the time too. I mean, that's maybe another thing to add on to this, and we won't go into too much detail, but it's like once you realize that the opportunities are within you, within your own mind and your own visualization and your own imagination, that's where it's like, wow, there's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity. It's like you don't ever run out of ideas. And that's where it also can be a little bit of a negative, because then you don't give something enough effort to go down and give it its full, maybe get all the way through to the completion, right? Once again, it's not perfect, but it's complete, it's shipped, it's out there in the marketplace, and it's going to test and see how it goes. But anyways, I just want to make sure you understand that you've got to slow down the chatter. You've got to get in the driver's seat of your own life through your personal development. We talk about that a lot here on the podcast. We talk about the financial education piece as well, which is where building a business, understanding where money comes from, understanding what money is. Once again, it's the idea. It's what's valuable. It's not the thing itself. Anyways, once again, it really starts to become fun. And that's how it's been for me. And that's obviously what I would wish for everybody else moving forward as well. Anyways, I think we're going to start wrapping this one up, man. Any more final closing thoughts on imagination, which is where, in my opinion, that's where the opportunities are? Any thoughts on that again?
Yeah, no, I just agree with you. I'm, definitely encourage people just to use their imagination exactly like you're describing, and it can be life-changing. So, to take it seriously, change your thoughts. Like you said, get in the driver's seat of your own thoughts every day and just see what happens.
So just do it slowly, folks. You're not going to be able to shut this chatter off. It doesn't stop. So I have the chatter going on all the time. It's just a matter of when I catch it, when it's might necessarily be serving me in that moment. So whether I'm going down a negative rabbit trail, whether I'm stuck on social media, it's like you just catch it in real time, and then you can shift it into something else. We've talked about using your I am statements. That's what I use to kind of center myself in a particular moment. And when I do that, then I can start directing my thoughts moving forward. A lot of times that's where the ideas come from. So the ideas that I'm using to come up with the episodes of the podcast, I'll just start having ideas bubble up to the surface, right? Whether you're in the shower, whether I'm in a journaling session for myself, that's where a lot of it comes from, is that I'll just have an idea. But if I was stuck in the chatter of what's going on, I wouldn't be able to hear it, or I wouldn't be able to see it. So once again, it's those opportunities would be missed if I was stuck in the mess or the stuff of the day-to-day. And that's, once again, I just want to encourage you to get in that driver's seat, which is where this personal development piece is so important. If you want to build a business, build a life, build this legacy, health, wealth, and legacy that you're trying to build, that's what we want to try to encourage you to do moving forward. And that's where it becomes a lot of fun. So as always, reach out to Greg and I, info@richmind.co. I don't know if imagination, can you think of a good word to use for this subject line on this one, Greg, as far as for people to reach out to us if they want to maybe talk about some brainstorming ideas and that type of thing?
Yeah, maybe opportunity. That'd be a good
opportunity. Love it. Love it. Let's go with that. Subject line, opportunity. And let's start having a dialogue back and forth. Greg and I maybe can help flesh out some ideas that you maybe have for yourself, right? Like I said, Greg and I had a discussion even before we hit record today. We're trying to build out this idea of a program that we want to create to solve a problem in the marketplace. And if we can do that and help you with that, we would love to. That's once again, it becomes super fun to do that. So info@richmind.co, and that'll be a great place and for you to obviously get the resources and help that you need to build this business and lifestyle that you're looking for. So go out there, have a fantastic day. The next episode, we're going to talk about, I refer to Jim Rohn a lot on the podcast. We're going to talk about the seasons of life. And Jim talked about that a lot in a lot of his programs. You may or may not have even have heard of that before. You may or may not even have thought of that before. But there are seasons. Our life is like the seasons. Business is like the seasons. Success is like the seasons. And we're going to get into detail of what that even actually means and how you can implement some of the strategies in your own life and go out there and build the life that you truly desire. So appreciate your time and attention. If you wouldn't mind sharing the Rich Mind podcast with your family and friends, we'd greatly appreciate the support. And we look forward to coming back with the next episode again very soon. Until then, have a great day, folks. Bye now.